I'm Dwight Sick. I'm the winemaker at Stag Hollow Winery. I've been here now for 3 vintages, and the wine in particular that I'd like to talk about is the Syrah Rosé. Rhone varietals are a relatively new concept for Stag Hollow. We've only been dealing with them for the last 2 vintages, and I'm very proud to say that the Syrah Rosé was awarded Best Rosé at the Northwest Wine Summit.
Now, what are some of the factors that you look for making a serious rosé?
I'd like the rosé to be very aromatic. I also like texture in wine. It's probably a key word for me. And Syrah is one of those varieties that naturally has a pepper characteristic that comes through in the finish of the wine, and it gives the illusion of the wine being completely dry. Acid balance is also key. And it's one of those varieties, again, that if you pick it at the right parameters, you can get that acid balance naturally. The crop load was actually not any heavier than our main block that we actually pull our Syrah primary fruit for our red wine. But there was more vigor in this section of the vineyard. So the canopy was a little more vegetative, and what it did was that veraison prevented the fruit from starting to concentrate on sugars because it was such a vegetative section of the vineyard, and so we ended up with slightly lower sugars, slightly higher acids in that section of the vineyard, and that earmarked it perfectly for rosé.
So is that a byproduct of the vintage, or now that you've got kind of some
section of the vineyard, it's already earmarked to be done again this year.
Okay. Wow.
So that section of the block, we've already flagged it off.
So now what, do you mind telling me what the crop load was, like tons per acre for that block?
We were about 2.5 tons per acre.
Okay.
It was pretty light. It's only, this is only 5th leaf fruit this year, so that was 4th leaf fruit. Probably unique characteristic of this rosé, which I talked about aromatics. I blended in 9% Viognier and 1% Muscat, which really bumps up the aromatics, adds a touch of floral note to the presentation of the wine, and just makes it extremely inviting.
Tell me a bit about your background. You said you've been here for 3 vintages.
Yeah.
And
prior to that, I was at Penticton Winery. That was where my initial experience with Syrah and my interest with Rhone varietals came prior to that, but it was where I really got my hands dirty working with Syrah.
Surprise! I think the big surprise was within 2 days of finding out that not only was it the best rosé at the Okanagan Wine Festival, but also finding out that it was the best rosé at the Northwest Wine Summit. So that was great news. And to get they're not just golds, they're the best in those categories, and to have 2 totally separate competitions agreeing that that was the case, that's pretty phenomenal, because that's rare. We purchased the land back in 1992, and prior to that, I worked in Calgary and looked after pension and benefit plans for a couple of oil companies. So when the opportune time came to leave and do something different, I took it and came out here, searched out the land, did a bit of research, and found that this area probably was one of the best areas in the valley, I think, for growing grapes. What we have planted is Merlot, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, or had Chardonnay, Vidal, and most recently in the Hollow, Tempranillo. We also have a little bit of Sauvignon Blanc.
wow, Tempranillo.
Tempranillo. It took me 10 years to figure out what to put down in the Hollow. The Hollow faces southwest, is very, very warm and very sheltered, and is all very, the terroir is very rocky and gravelly. And a perfect place to put a red, except for the fact that it is a frost pocket. So I was searching for an appropriate grape in the red variety that would ripen early without it being a hybrid like Foch. And I've enjoyed Tempranillo and understood that they do ripen earlier. So that's what I've experimented with. And we've gotten 1 crop out of it, and it was absolutely superb.
Yeah. Now, I've known from the time or 2 that I've been here in the past, it's a beautiful tasting room, but it sounds like you're going to be moving virtually everything behind you. So
Yes.
Tell me about the
new facility?
Yeah.
Well, I guess after 10 years of having our winery under the house and working in a very awkward facility and not being able to expand our production at all, we took a look at ways that we could expand, and the original plan was to buy more land and put a building up. Since that wasn't working out, we decided we would put a new building up on the land here that we have and get our facility from under the house to an appropriate place to make wine. And it's turned out to be a very good move. It's allowed us to expand our production. We've more than doubled that in the last couple of years and hope to increase that a little bit more. A couple of other interesting things about both the house and the new winery. From a green technology perspective, back in 1995 when we built the house and original winery, we used geothermal technology then, and we've also put that into the new winery building. And it's been, in my view, a very good move. About 3 vintages ago, we started to look at ways to change what we were doing in the sense of trying to create some interesting and new wines. So the one big change was planting Tempranillo back in 2006. The next fortunate change was finding a very good vineyard that had Syrah planted, and coinciding with that, Dwight Sick, our new winemaker, came along. So it became a perfect storm, if you like, in terms of having somebody that really had a passion for using Rhone varieties and making them into great wines.